Monday, July 28th. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geeknights. Tonight, we talk a bit about whether or not you are morally justified in stealing people's Wi-Fi.
Let's do this. If you listen to last Thursday's show, you know that us cooking dinner lately has been a rarity. And since dinner's in the oven right now, but it's only going to be in there for like 10 minutes, let's record the news real quick so we can go down and eat it at the right time.
I can't say one thing about the whole dinner thing. It's not so much that we don't cook dinner, it's that Scott doesn't cook dinner.
Hey, I cook sometime.
Nah, you haven't cooked in a while.
Not in a while, no. I'll be cooking again in September.
Most of these suggestions they're not really that useful.
They're not things that we have not known about before.
Yes, it's more a matter of even those things take too much time.
Yep.
Or they don't produce food that tastes good enough to be worth the time. I mean, sure, I can cook a real quick meal of rice and something in like 10 minutes, but for all the taste,
I'd rather go hungry.
Or just eat out.
Yep.
It's not like I can.
All right, so check this out, right? There's been this big news today. Is oh my God, there's a new search engine to compete with Google.
Wait, no. I think I have to redact that a little bit.
Oh, it doesn't compete with Google.
Yeah, the news is there's a search engine.
Gasp! There's been search engines since 1990. God knows what.
Of course, it's funny how you think back through the early days of search engines, and it was like
they all sucked.
Well, no, but the internet, was barely usable without search engines. There are all these kind of hacks, but like one by one, kind of like in Europe. Only at a much more accelerated pace. One by one, every single search engine that was worth a damn would ascend to the top, and then within 3 or 4 months be completely forgotten by the next one.
Yep. But anyway, everyone's talking about the only reason this one's getting attention, right, is because it's written by ex-Google people. So they're like, oh, if these people left Google and made a new search engine,
wait.
Maybe it'll be better than Google.
Wait, left Google or were fired by Google?
No, they left Google.
Are we sure?
I'm pretty sure.
Uh-huh.
They were. I know that they were at Google at one point and no longer are with Google. Anyway. So the search engine they made is called Cuil. It's spelled Cuil because they think they're so cool, but they're not.
Someone on Slashshot actually noted something very important about Cuil.
What?
They made the critical mistake of branding a new product in that they named it something that you do not automatically know how to pronounce.
Yep.
Google is a stupid name, but you look at it and you know exactly how to say it.
Yeah, it's a typical marketing mistake, but that's not what kills them. What kills them is this. Number one, search results not so good. All right. Number two, the search results look pretty interesting because they give you them in columns with pictures, and it's neat, but it's not helpful. It's hard to skim that page to get the information quickly. And the killer of Cuil, the worst part about it, the reason it will not succeed, it's slow. The number one thing...
It's already sped up since this morning. The only reason...
No, Google is instant. I push the button and bam, there it is. If it's not that fast, it's not worth it.
I point out, I've been searching on this for the last few minutes, and it's been instant every time I clicked.
Well, it wasn't instant this morning.
Yes, because everyone in the world was hitting it.
Yeah, well,
and
they need to be able to handle everyone in the world hitting it, or you can't compete.
See,
so.
That presents a problem. Because if that is actually the case... It'll be impossible for anyone to ever beat Google.
I think it is. I think it is until the world changes to where there's a new paradigm besides the web search engine. Google's going to be the king.
Here's the scary thing. I was talking about all these different search engines back in the day. Think of this. I remember I'd use Yahoo for 4 or 5 months. And then I switched to Alta Vista because it was better for 6 months.
Yep.
And then I went back to Google, or not to Google. I went back to Yahoo for another month or two. And then I switched to Google, and I've been using them for almost a decade.
Yeah, I mean, I remember I was using Yahoo, but I didn't like it because it was just a directory. And Alta Vista got all these pages. And then I was going to web crawler and, Lycos and Alta Vista. And whenever I wanted to search for something, I would for a time, I would go to every search engine, seeing what came up, the major ones at least. Until eventually I went to Yahoo, and Yahoo was working better than the others. And at the bottom, it said powered by Google, where it used to say powered by Hotspot. And Hotspot was an okay search engine because it let you get real specific, like show me only SWF files and stuff like that. But Yahoo switched to being powered by Google. So one day I was like, what is this Google that powers them? And I clicked on it, and it brought me to Google. And I said, I can just use the Google. Why am I using the Yahoo to use the Google? And it was the same search results that Yahoo was getting. I was like, hey, fuck Yahoo. And then Google ever since. So the end.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, though. One thing, while it's not as good as Google, it's nowhere near as good or as useful as Google. Google is just it's so transcendent for searching to the point that you use it without even thinking about it.
Yep.
But most of the people who were complaining on Slashdot and Fark and all these places were doing these super generic one-word searches, and their complaint was this and this alone. It didn't give me the exact same list of things that Google gave me for the super generic search.
That's like the old argument. Oh, Linux, the interface is bad because it's not the exact same as the Windows
Or like
one.
the anime fanboy argument when you're watching, if you have the subtitles and the dub on, they look at the subtitles, they see that it's different from the dub, and then decry the translation as being wrong.
Yeah.
But I point out, I searched for something kind of specific. I searched for RIT Anime, the old anime club that we used to run. Well, I used to run, and Scott used to infiltrate.
That's fine. Infiltrating as far as appear as the Shadow King.
Shadow something. Anyway, so I searched for it, and actually, all the things on the front page, it shows the first link is the RIT Anime Club's homepage with a picture of the RIT Anime Club. It's perfect. The next one is the list of all the RIT Anime Club. Third one is another page on the RIT Anime Club. And, it's got all these like really
I mean,
relevant
it's
pictures.
not going to be stupidly off. The real test would be to search for like complicated things. Like I'm looking for, especially like the kind of things I search for when I'm at work. I need a PHP class that helps me export, Excel sheets from, in color.
No, but you're missing the point. What I'm saying is that Google is good at that. Google is good at searching for the specific unit of information you want, irrespective of where you get that information. You just want the piece of information. But at least with a few searches, and the Anime Club one's a good example, it gives you kind of at a glance an overview of a topic, of a semi-specific, not ultra-specific and not ultra-generic
But I use
topic.
Wikipedia for that most of the time.
But Wikipedia doesn't give it to you at a glance, and honestly, Wikipedia's quality in terms of editorial content has been dropping lately. Grammar's getting worse and worse. I actually kind of gave up on editing for a while because I just couldn't deal with all the crap I had to fix.
See, the thing is, I don't usually use. People write these big Wikipedia articles, and I really think those big articles are only for the people doing like a research project and for the people writing
Scott,
them.
Then you want the
when
simple,
I go to
Scott,
Wikipedia,
then you want the simple English Wikipedia, which just tells you basically what something is as simply as possible.
Yeah, that's what I pretty much use it for. But usually, it also is I want like to find one specific fact about something that might not be just what is it. I usually
that's when you Google for it and you'll find the Wikipedia page with that one nugget.
Exactly.
But what this does is it gives you a nice overview. I mean, I'm looking and it links to Geeknights because we used to be there. Links to Anime Cons and TorCon, and it's actually it worked really well. The only problem is that next to Geeknights it shows a picture of some Nokia phone.
Yeah, I'm not going to be using this search engine. That's all I can say.
No, I foresee that this search engine could survive because it could provide a service that is not a service Google provides.
I don't see it.
I don't know why not.
Because just search for RT Anime on Google. You'll find the same thing. There's no reason to use this one instead of Google. It's just more work.
Actually, no. If you search for RIT Anime on Google, you find links to all these. It's actually a completely different set of links for the most part. And one of that, let's see.
The top link is the RT Anime Club.
Yes, but what
else do you need?
What if you're not? What if you're just looking for an overview? You want to see like, what are kind of the websites about this thing? As opposed to a specific piece of information.
I don't see why I would need to do that. There's not a time during my searching where I feel like there's a kind of search I need to make that I am not capable of making.
Well, I think the thing is you don't search for that kind of generic information.
What do you mean? There's no information that I currently cannot search for. So what need does this, what problem does this solve?
Well,
it's solving a non-existent problem.
Well, I think
if it does solve anything at all.
I think it's providing an alternate kind of searching that I think some people are going to like. I think it's going to survive. I don't think it's going to do that well.
And no one's going to use this after, it stops being paid attention to.
Because one other thing I can say, and if you hadn't kept interrupting, what I would have finished is that Google gives you a lot of shit search results. I mean, Google's good. Like the top one will always be what you're looking for like something specific. But half the other links on Google will be the same thing on Dig, the same thing on all these other list sites, on all these other aggregators. And I didn't find any of that in Cuil. Of course, I'm sure Cuil will eventually.
I don't know. That's what I found when I searched for me on Cuil. It was like me on, list all, me on
Scott,
Dig,
that's
me
the only
Dig
place
again.
you are on the internet.
What do you mean? I'm in a lot of places.
But that sort of thing, like for like a club or something, or a podcast, go on Google, you find nothing but all these other websites that just have the same syndicated content. It doesn't happen as much on Cuil yet. That's all I was saying. So in some other news, I kind of wanted to talk about all the business going on with software patents, but I kind of want to wait until we have more of a solid story there.
Yeah, I
because-
mean, we've talked about software patents enough times. Saying they're bullshit is enough,
no,
unless
but-
there's like a huge development.
Well, the development is basically that the USPTO has been very rapidly moving its stance toward just outright devalidating all of them.
Yeah, it's a good chance, but let's save the news until they do invalidate all of them. Then we'll make a huge news out of it. Like we could do a whole episode going woo.
But equally important here is that the FCC has been there's been a lot of debate as to what to do about Comcast and other ISPs and the fact that they've been kind of surreptitiously throttling peer-to-peer content. And they voted, the 5 commissioners of the FCC have voted to punish Comcast.
I'm torn two ways on this.
Quote, the initial report on the vote said nothing about which way Oh, wait, that quote doesn't have anything into it. Never mind.
Great quote. Great quote.
I realized the quote is just partisan BS I don't care about.
Yeah. Do you want to tell me the two ways I'm torn?
Well, me. Why would I tell you the 2 ways you're torn?
All right, so the two ways I'm torn. On the one hand, Comcast is assholes getting punished. Awesome, right? I mean, come on. That's the obvious feeling to have right at this is Comcast was assholes filtering BitTorrent, violating net neutrality. The FCC's coming down on them,
Let's remember,
thus protecting net neutrality.
They weren't filtering. It's not like they were saying...
I know.
No, but it's not like they were saying, hey, we're going to block these ports. If you want to use our service, you can't use these ports or anything like that. They were basically engaging in malicious behavior.
Yeah, we know what they were doing. The thing is, I'm torn the other way. Because I read, this guy had a really great write-up. I'll see if I can find the link.
Some guy on the internet says...
It wasn't some guy. I think it was an actual editorial in a newspaper.
Oh, so some guy...
Anyway, what he was talking about, though, was he was also supporting the net neutrality. But what he said was, this is sort of like the straw that's going to be broken and perhaps open a floodgate, and another metaphor I can throw in there as well. And that here we have, for the first time, non-engineers regulating the internet in some way. Every decision about how the internet works or how it's going to be run has always been done by engineers in some group or another, somewhere in the world. It's engineers that have come together and made the decisions about how networks will be run. And here we have the first touch of government bureaucracy and politicians and those sorts of people getting their hands in. Now it's the FCC,
Scott,
so they're a little bit engineering.
I disagree because there's been a ton of legislation and regulation about the internet and technology over the years by governments and non-engineers. And I would argue that a lot of the people who have been making decisions about the internet are technically engineers in the same sense that my job description has the word engineer in it.
Yeah, but I mean, it's still, there's some principle to the thing that, once, if the FCC can do this, that means they can do other things we might not want them to do. And that is just a little bit not so great.
If your only argument is a slippery slope, then it's a logical fallacy.
It is.
Slippery slope is only valid at all if you also have other evidence.
I know, there's no evidence that it will, slip down the slope, but if
Plus,
we allow
slope?
the government to do it, opens a door less than it slips down a slope.
But again, what slope? Because basically, I'm of the mind that a lot of what Comcast is doing amounts to, among other things, false advertising.
Oh, see, that's what I think, is that Comcast should be punished, but not by the FCC in a technological way, but by the criminal courts in that
Scott,
sort of
it's
way.
not a criminal issue.
They should be sued with a class action lawsuit by the customer.
Class action lawsuits never amount to anything.
I know, it's just a way for lawyers to get a lot of money. But if class action lawsuits work,
I would take the opposite tack and say that I'm of the mind that this is the kind of thing the FCC should have been doing all along and should be doing. They shouldn't be censoring. They shouldn't be regulating content. They should only be regulating the means we get content. The airwaves, the radio waves, which is the same as the airwaves.
Yeah, but the other thing is I feel like the FCC should only deal with the wireless things and not so much the wired things.
Why? That's an arbitrary distinction that you're making only because the wired things are more near and dear to you.
No, it's because if something's on a wire, someone owns the wires, and you don't have this issue where you need the government to step in and tell people how to use them.
We still need the government stepping in because the regulation of who owns what wires where and who's allowed or not allowed to put wires is a big deal.
For telephone wires, they're shared wires. They're a public utility. But right now, cable companies actually own all the wires that they put up. It's an owned thing. It's not It's not a shared thing, so it's sort of like you don't
But
really
they
need.
they still use civic infrastructure. They use the telephone poles, and in fact, cable modems and all these things are part of the reason why our telephone pole infrastructure is now on the verge of collapse because they're well overextended.
That is true.
Yes, that is why that is actually the specific point that I would make for the FCC being able to regulate this.
The other thing, though, is that it's not all. We're not Comcast specifically is cable, but not every internet service provider is cable or telephone.
If they don't use cable or telephone, they use wireless, and then the FCC gets it.
Yeah, but what if someone just gets
Guess what? So it doesn't use wires and
fiber.
it's not wireless.
Fiber that's not on a telephone pole.
So where do they put it?
It just goes to their neighbor.
How? No. You can do that.
Yeah.
I'll tell you one thing though. Running pipe underground, you got to do it. Don't run copper.
Oh, hell no. Hell no.
We learned a somewhat famous story at RIT where a company had two buildings on the same site, and they wanted to have Ethernet between the two. So they just had a conduit run, between the two buildings underground.
And they just sent Cat 5 through the wire?
No. They send big old, coaxial cables. And
all right.
Media converters on both ends. So it was a big deal. Like the internet there's a bridge on either end, and then stuff that had to go across went across this big high bandwidth link.
All right.
One of the buildings got struck by lightning.
Oh.
Yeah, copper.
Oh.
Copper cable connecting the two underground. Not good.
Bad idea.
Yes.
Couldn't they have solved it though with some sort of surge protector thing?
Nah, you're better off
But
running fiber.
you'd need a big one for lightning, but you could have. It's possible.
Anyway, there's actually it's a longer anecdote. I don't want to get into all the technicalities of it because none of you care.
No one cares.
It was actually part of one entire class worth of a case study of poor decisions made by people who don't understand their ramifications.
Huh. I've never seen anything like that before in the, IT, CS industry. No, only every goddamn day.
But think about it. Every way we're going to communicate will either need civic infrastructure, public land, right-of-way through private land, or regulation of the airwaves. The only foreseeable place I could see no use for the FCC would be quantum communication because it doesn't actually travel anywhere.
Or does it? Or can you just not be sure? I mean, yeah, FCC, we're going to take you to court. You violated the Quantum Communication Act of 2012. Can you prove that I, in fact, communicated? Where we have this level of certainty that there was communication occurring.
My follow-on...
I can tell you either if you communicated or what you communicated, but not both.
My follow-on joke to what you said would have been, but it's only 2007. Anyway, bees of the day.
No, not the bees.
Not the bees.
Not the bees.
No, not the... Ah! This is one of those rare things that's just so perfectly formed and so hilarious.
It's just it's sort of like this is sort of it's good in the same way that you can live 10 Pokemon is good.
It's such a simple joke, but it's executed flawlessly, and the mashup and just everything about it comes together.
So I think that's the one thing is that in the age of the internet, right, we've sort of lost the format of like the quick joke, what? The internet why did the chicken cross the road to get the other side?
God, the internet is nothing but quick jokes. I mean,
well, but I mean,
people,
incredibly quick.
How many videos in College Humor, if they're more than a minute long, people just don't bother.
Yeah, but I'm talking about this, a minute long, that's quick relative, but that's not this is super quick. We're talking
Scott,
the fives, the one-liner, the 5-second joke.
You know where those jokes are? Go to Fart, go to something awful. The joke is a picture.
Yep, that's a good one.
Those are in fact thriving on the internet. I poke holes in everything you just said.
Anyway,
this is just... I laughed so hard when I saw this.
I laughed pretty hard.
Not the bee.
I wasn't expecting so much, and I got way more than I expected.
Well, because it was done really well, especially with the zooming in and the fact that it was done obviously filming a TV, which gives it this kind of extra edgy quality.
But it was done well enough where it didn't matter.
Plus, the fact that the comedic timing, because it's all right, it's really funny, that's done really well, But then the exact precise comedic timing of the second thing that happens at the very end of the video.
Yeah, if the timing on this was off, it would not work at all.
It's one of those things where you go, ha 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 ha, and just as you're about to stop laughing, they hit you with the 1-2 punch and you laugh even harder.
The thing is, I saw it coming because I know how that works.
Oh yeah, but at the same time, you see it coming, but then it hits and you still laugh.
For anyone, it's a combination of this movie called The Wicker Man, a movie I've never seen and know nothing about.
I think it has Nicolas Cage in it.
Okay, you can check IMDb for that. And Mega Man 3 Hard Man's level. And, well, it doesn't matter if you've never seen the movie, and it really actually doesn't matter if you've never played Mega Man 3.
Not the beast! Oh, not the beast!
Not the beast.
What is that? What is that? Okay.
Okay.
Anyway.
So, I don't know, when you were a kid, right, you would go to, there were these places called Showbiz Pizza. It was a big chain in the olden days.
In the Midwest, we had Major Magics, which was basically the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think I went to one of these places, but it was called something else. But I remember, it's basically go and play arcade games as a kid, right?
Get really, really shitty pizza.
Get really shitty pizza, and there's an animatronic, band that plays music. The
sad thing
is,
is,
your birthday party, they let all your friends in there, and you go watch the animatronic animals.
If one of those places was around here today, I would probably go there regularly because it'd probably be the best arcade around.
Well, if it had games like it did back in the day. I mean, nowadays you go to a Chuck E. Cheese and all the games are like crane games and toss the ball in the hole games and stomp the spider games.
Man, I remember playing crossbow at my Major Magics.
Yeah, these places don't have DDR and Mortal Kombat 2 anymore. Anyway.
Mortal Kombat 2.
Yeah. Or Virtual On. So... those animatronic animals, when I was a kid, they scared the fuck out of me.
Really?
They didn't scare me so much that I would run away, but they were sort of annoying and painful to look at. I didn't enjoy them at all, and I wondered why other kids did enjoy them, or if they even enjoyed them.
It might have been this kind of mass hysteria where kids are at a birthday party, they see all the other kids losing their shit about the dancing animals.
I don't remember anyone losing their shit about it.
I remember seeing little kids jumping up and down and clapping and cheering.
Really? I don't remember that. But
of course, I remember usually my parents would make us sit there and watch the thing, and then as soon as it was done, I would grab my tokens and make a beeline.
Exactly. It always felt like the kind of thing that adults thought kids would like, but kids didn't actually like, and they made us sit. Or I guess when I was a little bit older, like maybe 6, it sort of felt like a thing that was for 3-year-olds, and I was too old. I always felt too old for it, no matter how old I was. But anyway, some dude, right, he collected like a full set of these animatronic, musicians. And actually, the place was called Showbiz Pizza, but the animals were called, the band that the animals comprised was the Rockafire Explosion.
Now, I can say with almost certainty that I saw some of these exact same things at Major Magics.
I've definitely seen some of them. So this guy collected the full set of these animatronic animals.
What, like in his house?
Yes, I think like in his garage or something, or in like a rented space. Anyway.
Not the animatronics.
He fixed them all up. He set them all up. The whole thing is pretty much as working as well as it, perhaps better than the day it was made. He fixed the whole thing. And what he does is you go to his website and you make a bid. You pick a song and you offer some money. And if someone else offers money for the same song, then the total money for that song goes up. And whichever song has the most money going for it, he choreographs the animatronic animals to play that modern, awesome song. Or maybe people pick an old song, I don't know. And then he puts the video on YouTube, and then you pay him. And as much as I hated these animals as a kid and thought they were stupid and didn't get it and everything, I watch this now, and there's something about it that's just really awesome. I don't know what it is, but it feels great to watch these animals play modern pop songs.
I think part of it is that it appeals to the hacker in all of us, because you take something.
There is that aspect.
I mean, if we had those things, you can bet we would be doing awesome things with them.
I guess it's like I get the same enjoyment I get if I watch people play Rock Band really awesomely. See, there's more to it though, because maybe for children of the 80s, more so than anything else, I remember that animatronics were kind of the symbol and icon of the economic prosperity of my childhood. Well, that's definitely true, because I remember, nowadays, when I was that young, I didn't appreciate, what the economy was good, economy was bad,
Yes, because remember,
right?
children of the 80s, we really came of, children of the 70s came of age in the 80s. We were children of the 80s. We came of age in the 90s. In the 90s, if you went to any mall in America, where at least outside of, I guess, the backest of water, There were animatronics in every mall.
There's a mall over in Jersey on the other side of the Tappan Zee Bridge called the Palisades Park, whatever, right? It's huge. They built it sort of like they built it at like the peak of economic awesomeness in the U.S. like, less than 10 years ago.
I mean,
the mall was huge. This mall, when I went to it when it was new, it had a Dave & Buster's, right? Not only did it have a Dave & Buster's, it had a Chuck E. Cheese Discovery Zone equivalent place with the biggest set of tubes and balls I've ever seen. Big ball pit.
Lakeside Mall, when I was a kid, not only did they have an arcade that was awesome, and not only did they have
I'm not even done yet.
multiple amusement park restaurants, they had water slides in the mall.
All right, this mall had a Ferris wheel in it, I'm pretty sure. It had a Rainforest Cafe. Remember that shit?
Oh, I remember that
The
shit.
animatronics in there. They had a Disney store full of animatronics, a Warner Brothers store full of animatronics. They had this NASCAR place you can go to, NASCAR Silicon Alley Motor Speedway, and it was basically full-size NASCARs with projectors in front of the screen and little tiny screens in the rearview mirrors and hydraulics lifting the things up, and you paid $10 to do like one track. And it was a replication of a real track, and it drove just like it was calibrated to be just like a real NASCAR.
Yep.
That's out of business.
Every mall had VR stuff. I remember you'd go and ride for $5 or $6, like a VR roller coaster. Actually, a lot of them, they had VR first-person shooters where you and a bunch of friends would just play an FPS in the semi-VR. It was actually really, I kind of wouldn't mind doing that today.
And nowadays, all those things are gone, and only now can I appreciate that the reason we had all those things during that time period, during the Clinton era,
Not really.
was because the economy was awesome, and now the economy sucks. We have none of those things.
But at the same time, the economy sucking. We over the weekend we went.
Those things are a waste. We shouldn't have spent our money on them. Maybe the economy wouldn't suck now.
Yes. Oh, the other thing you always saw in malls was that 3 rings, 3 concentric rings, and you'd kind of crucify yourself in the middle, and then it would spin you around.
Yeah, something, a gyro, whatever it is.
Because the thing is, that was actually exercise. It wasn't just like a ride. You could actually control the thing by tensing muscles and shifting your weight.
Yep.
I know this only because I did it a lot.
I want to call it a gyroscope, but it's a gyro. It's a gyro something. It's a gyro something.
Let's just call it a Da Vinci.
Whatever. All right.
So, I'm of the mind that there are neither moral nor legal implications to just totally stealing someone's Wi-Fi.
I'm of the mind that there are no legal implications that I know of, but it's questionable. I don't think there should be, and I don't think there are, but there might be legal implications. But I think there is a somewhat moral implication to just stealing someone's Wi-Fi.
I don't think morals should be a factor at all, because in technology issues, we should only discuss the technology.
Well, if you only want to discuss the technology, Wi-Fi works. People leave them open. You can connect to them.
Yes,
what more is there to it?
There's a lot of people feel as though it is somehow a crime, or it should be a crime, to connect to an unencrypted Wi-Fi.
Well, here's the only reason why I feel sort of in line with the moral argument of connecting to an unencrypted Wi-Fi that you just find, all right, so it doesn't... First of all, there's a difference between, one open Wi-Fi and another. If I go to the park and there's a sign in the park that says free Wi-Fi here, and I open up my laptop and I see one with the ESSID of free Wi-Fi, that's okay. Obviously, it's okay. If I go to a hotel and it says free Wi-Fi and I connect to it, it's obviously okay, right?
Now, by the same token, I remember one case, we were out visiting our friend Pete.
Yep.
And we drove way up, and he wasn't around, so we just kind of sat in this park next to, there's one house there. And Scott notices that there's Wi-Fi.
Yep.
Obviously coming from this one house.
Yep.
So we connect to it, see that there's a computer. We see that it has an unprotected Windows share. We made a text file explaining how to secure a Wi-Fi. We put it on the C drive, and then we went on our way.
We did indeed. But see, here's the thing. To you, the best example I have, and I said this in the forum, but I don't think, everyone who's listening to this read that forum post, right? Imagine for a second, I think our opinion is largely shaped by the fact that we live in the United States. Imagine for a second we were in Australia. People in Australia, when they buy internet access, right, they get a limited amount of bandwidth, X gigabits per month. And if they use that up, they have to start paying an exorbitant fee for every, bit they go over. So let's say you have someone in Australia, and they're dumb. They set up wireless for their laptop. They got that far, but they were too dumb to set up, the security on it, right? Which is something you would definitely want to do if you had limited bandwidth, because if someone random person used all your bandwidth, now suddenly you can't use your internet without paying a crazy fee. And if you go in Australia and you see an access point named Linksys123, odds are, right, being a technological person, the odds are a stupid person set that up and didn't know better, right? And if you use that, that odds are a person that's dumb like that is not the kind of person who's paying the extra money for the unlimited bandwidth in Australia. So if you use their bandwidth, you're actually taking significant stuff out of their wallet without their explicit permission. And in there, I think there is a slight grounds for a moral implication that you probably shouldn't be doing that.
Now, the reason I definitely say there shouldn't be a legal implication, and Scott and I actually have argued about this a lot over the years, and our opinions have kind of moved toward the center a little bit over time.
A little bit.
But basically, I am leery of any time where in using a technology or engaging with a technological device that you have to have some sort of implicit or subjective, like you have to somehow ascertain the intention or the intent, if I may, of the person on the other end. That if I'm communicating with someone, there's the information we're exchanging. I shouldn't have to make some sort of meta calculation as to what they are intending to exchange with me.
For example,
because the moment you make that distinction, you have basically broken the trust of protocols on the internet and made everything subject to legal action.
Here, think about this for a second, right? Someone has a web server, right? I can ask that web server, I can say get index.html, and that web server sends me index.html. It just does it. There's no person making a decision on the other end. What if someone accidentally set up a web server and I'm using their bandwidth when I get data from their web server, right? But it's implied sort of when you set up a web server on the internet that you want people to visit it.
Now, see, the reason it's implied is because it's a specific protocol. The protocol is that if you want to accept these kinds of connections, when a certain kind of request comes in, then if you don't respond, nothing happens. But the fact that I ask it, hey, web server, can I look at you? And it says, hello, Rim, here is some information. Would you like some more? Mm-hmm. And in that case, if anyone ever argues that we should have to worry about the intent of the person who set up a technology, then in that case, legally, you could be in trouble for visiting a website just because someone put it online, but they don't actually want anyone to look at it.
Even though they didn't set up the security on it.
Now, that's why a lot of people use the analogy with Wi-Fi of the open door. Well, if someone just, forgets to lock their doors, that'll give you the legal right to steal everything in their house. And the reason is, it's not a good analogy at all. With Wi-Fi...
This discussion is ripe for a million broken analogies. Pretty much all people do when they have this argument is throw analogies like... There's analogies enough to, like, bury a city.
But it's like an analogy, you see.
No.
But no, it's not like leaving your door open and someone walks in and takes your stuff. It is much more analogous to, you go to the store and you see a sign, and the sign says, free lemonade, come on in, help yourself. But you don't understand what the sign says. But you choose to buy it anyway because you need something to patch a hole in the front of your house. There's a hole in your house. So you put it over the hole because you bought it to cover that hole. But you can't read, so you don't realize that on the hole now it says, please come in.
You're making this analogy way too complicated.
Because that's exactly what it's like. Remember, when you buy a wireless access point, you buy it because you want to do something. You have an intent in mind. You want to have your internet around your house. But you're dumb. So you don't know all the other things that this product does. So I'm buying this sign to do one thing, to cover the hole in my wall. But I don't know the other thing it does, the thing it explicitly does, the thing it tells me outright that it does, that it says, all are welcome, come on in, free lemonade. So in that case, if I see a house with the door open and a sign that says, free lemonade, come on in, I believe that I'm perfectly within my rights to walk into that house unannounced and take some lemonade.
Yep.
Now, it's a little bit more dubious if I decide to also take the safe full of money.
Yeah.
In fact, you could argue that is wrong because the sign explicitly said free lemonade. But you're allowed to come in. you're allowed to take the lemonade, and you're allowed to leave, and you're allowed to linger.
Well, think about the situation where the guy, what he did was he put up, the two people put something on Craigslist that said, come to this address, I'm giving everything away for free. And it was some other guy's house. So it's as if the guy had a free lemonade sign in his house, but he didn't put it up. Someone else put it up when he wasn't looking. And everyone
but at the same time, what are the specifics? The first person who showed up, was the house unlocked?
It must have been. I don't know.
See, because from what I read about that story, I get the impression that people showed up and then broke in.
That's what it. And then they were like angry when the guy said, "Hey, don't take my shit," and then they waved the Craigslist papers in his face as if to say,
"See, now that is two different situations." Because here's not an analogy, but take the example of a Cisco router that a company sets up. Like, say I run Joey Jojo Shabadoo Soft Incorporated, so I have a router. Now, say I'm dumb and I don't set up my security right, so you can tell that to my router, and it lets you log in. Now, say I put a banner. I'm smart enough. I put a banner, so when you get to the telnet screen, it says clearly, this router is the property of so-and-so. You are not. No one is entitled to go any further. Unauthorized access, blah, 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 blah. I don't think you have the right to continue beyond at that point.
Yeah, I think that's been made pretty clear in the past.
But you
as far as I know.
But you could not say, by visiting this site, you have hereby agreed to the following terms.
No, you
could
can't
not
do that.
have known the terms before you arrived. So
exactly.
Say someone, I put up my lemonade sign, and then someone walks in and goes to take my lemonade. I think I have the right to say, hey, who are you? Get the fuck out. And then they say, hey, but your sign says free lemonade. To which I say, well, the sign's wrong, get out. And then I think the person has to leave. Now, this is my opinion. The law, it's pretty clear what the law says, but my opinion, regardless of the law, is that in the Craigslist case, if the owner of the property said to leave, the moment those Craigslist people didn't leave, they are now in violation of the law.
Yeah.
But the person at fault is the person who posted the faulty thing in the first place. In the case of the Wi-Fi, the person who owns the house also posted the faulty sign.
Yeah, it's true. However, here's the thing is that it is commonly understood, that when someone sets up a website without security on it, they want people to visit it. That's sort of the default, is that people want you to visit their websites. When people set up Wi-Fi, the default is, most people don't even realize that it's something other people are going to use.
But again, that's only because you're making assumptions. You have to assume the intent.
It is an assumption. However, I found that it's mostly true. People who set up Wi-Fi, they don't know what they're doing. People who set up a web server know what they're doing, generally.
See,
So it's like the reality. It's like I know the reality of the world is thus, even though I can't. Basing it on assumptions ruins a lot of things.
But this brings up the more important point. Well, what about the old adage, stupid should be painful?
Stupid should be painful.
I feel as though. Now, obviously,
but on the other, but that's
obviously it's a sliding scale. There's no black and white. There is a line between moral and immoral. Now, granted, there should not be a line or a gray area between legal and illegal. It should be a very clear line.
Yes.
But in terms of morality, there's a fine line, and I think that there's a certain level of due diligence in any situation, Wi-Fi, whatever, any possible situation that a human could put themselves or others into. There is, in every case, a level of due diligence for all parties that is required. And I have the feeling that if you do not put forth that due diligence, then you do not have the right to recourse.
Right, but here's the thing, right? Stupid should be painful. That level of the argument I have to agree with. The thing is,
stupid should not be deadly.
Well, no. I'm just saying in this context, stupid should be painful. Not as a general rule for the universe.
Maybe kind of itchy too.
Right. But even if stupid should be painful, if you are not stupid and you intentionally go about doling out pain to the stupid.
Yes, that's on the very far
I think
end.
that's morally questionable.
But at the same time, I don't think it is that unjustified to expect a level of due diligence of I click on web.
But it's like they don't even know that much. It doesn't. And
you know what? I hate to say this, but I'm of the mind more and more that with certain technology, if you cannot function with the technology on a most basic level and put forth the minimal due diligence, that you have no business using said technology. And take the example of a car. You don't need to understand the intricacies of an internal combustion engine. You don't need to understand the chemical composition of automatic transmission fluid. You don't even have to know how to change your own oil. I'm fine with that. We're in a society where people need cars. Not everyone needs to be an expert at cars. But you need to know what the gas pedal does. You need to know what the brake pedal does. If you don't lock your car doors, tough shit if someone steals it.
I don't know. It's tough shit if someone steals if you don't lock the door.
All right. If you leave the car unlocked with the keys in it and the windows down.
The sign says, please take free car.
Or even if it doesn't say free car, while it's still wrong to steal it, the police are probably not going to care very much. And the insurance
Well, they don't care very much even if someone steals it hardcore.
In fact, I'm not an insurance lawyer. I'm not a lawyer. But I would bet
your insurance wouldn't cover it if you left the windows open and the keys in.
That if you left your car unlocked and the keys in, your insurance isn't going to cover it.
They probably won't.
You didn't do your due diligence.
Nope.
I honestly feel that either enabling security or in the very least making the SSID say private
or something,
any indication.
Wait. So what if you found a public Wi-Fi, right, and the SSID said private? What if it was, like Private Joe, and he was a private in the army or something, and he said, I'll call it private because that's what I am. And
see, now this is the sliding scale.
You're just sitting there, and all you see is the word private. Would you click on that?
See, now me personally, if I needed internet, yes. If needed internet, I'd break a WEP. That's an entirely different argument.
Yeah.
If I need internet access and I find I'll break the WEP. It's not that hard to do.
You need 2 laptops though.
Yeah, actually, you can get away with 1.
Can you?
I think so.
Used to need 2 to make it easy, but anyway.
Because there's a bunch of exploits now where you can just basically get the server to dump a bunch of data at you. And
I should get one of those things. Anyway.
Oh!
Because most people using WPA now anyway. It doesn't matter.
And if forgetting the legal argument, which I feel private probably wouldn't mean anything because it doesn't explicitly say you can't connect.
Well, but there's the other argument. With the wireless protocol, there's nowhere to put a message. Before.
Yes,
you have to allow people to connect, then do the thing that all the hotels do, where they forward all your HTTP traffic to one page that has the terms, and then have the second level of connection with the MAC filtering and the whole business.
Yes, but you see, there is still a facility. It's called WEP.
Yep.
There's also the argument, I say implicit and explicit, but legal aside, I think the only legal way to deal with it is simply if you don't protect your Wi-Fi, it's fair business. But in terms of morality, the more if it says please don't use or private, it's a little less morally justifiable to use it. If it's WEP encrypted, it's about 80% morally unjustifiable to use it. If it says WPA, you're at about 99%, but you won't break it anyway. So
yeah, I think also in the United States, the moral qualms are less because internet access has less value. So it's still stealing in principle in some way.
Well,
but
I
you're
believe
stealing.
The legal term is not actually stealing because bandwidth is free.
I'm talking about
it is trespass to chattel.
Right.
Chattel.
But the amount of damage is so small. Somewhere like the UK, the amount of damage you will cause is much, much higher. And I think therefore the moral qualm, while it's the same moral qualm in principle, it is far more damage that you are causing. So it's like the difference between okay, if you have one lock on your door but it's really flimsy, and I sort of just open the door, walk in, spin around and walk out, versus open the door, knock a bunch of stuff over and break it and walk out. It's like, okay, in principle, I did the same thing, the breaking and entering, but in one, the amount of damage I did was get your floor dirty. And in the other one, the amount of damage I did was break things, and it's just more damage.
See,
so
I'm
it's like if you're okay stealing a candy bar, but you're not okay stealing a car, that's the difference between doing it in the U.S. and doing it in Australia.
But at the same time, I'm kind of sad that you don't argue the legal aspect of it anymore, because I have my killer point, which is they're broadcasting their wireless signal, their radio waves, into public property where I am. And it's legal for me to look at, take pictures of, observe anything that I can see or hear from public property.
And it is legal for you, according to the FCC, with your radio in your computer to broadcast from that radio whatever signals you want.
Yep.
So you're allowed to look at all the radio signals coming out in the open air in public property, and you're allowed to broadcast these particular radio signals in public property.
So thus,
at that level, that's all you're doing.
So thus saying that it's illegal, or it should be illegal, to access someone's unencrypted, unprotected wireless, without having any sort of explicit way of knowing not to, is the same as saying that I could put a picture, like a poster in my front yard, but make it illegal for you to look at it or take pictures of it.
Well, I think the difference there is that, taking pictures of the thing doesn't do any damage to you. Whereas, sure, you're broadcasting the waves themselves into the air, but the result of those waves
is also
causing...
explicitly defined by the protocol, and you have allowed the protocol to make these decisions.
Yeah, what about that guy? Remember that story? The guys who were in the Home Depot parking lot and they got on the Home Depot network? Remember those guys?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, they got in trouble not just for the credit card stealing that they were doing, which is definitely illegal, but they got in trouble for the infiltrating of the company network.
See, but was that encrypted or not? I don't remember.
I don't think it was. I think it was Home Depot being stupid and having open wireless access points on their, store network.
See, now here's another point. Now, this is not to argue in favor of stealing things from people or doing bad things to people.
I'm just remembering. That's based on memory alone.
Yeah, but there's also the point of due diligence shouldn't just be this thing that everyone has to do in order to kind of put themselves above blame, or like, I at least did my due diligence, so it's not my fault.
Doing due diligence is usually, now my insurance will help me out because I did the due diligence.
Yes, but it's also I feel as though a lot of people have forgotten, especially in America and in the West, where, generally our lives are pretty good. And
personal responsibility no longer exists.
but it's the fact that we live generally very affluent, very well-off lives, and a lot of people do, but there's a certain level of due diligence you should do, not because other people tell you to, but because you only have one life. And even though people shouldn't do bad things to you, a lot of people do bad things. And you should take the due diligence required to protect yourself from other people as best you can. For example, I'm not a paranoid nut who runs around with 4 guns and a taser and a security system on my house.
No, you run around with 6 guns.
But at the same time, I wouldn't go to sleep naked in the middle of in the middle of Central Park at night. I wouldn't just sleep naked overnight in a remote part of Grand Central.
Well,
or Central Park.
Assuming that wasn't illegal being naked in public to begin with.
All right, fine, with a sock over my nuts.
Right.
Now it's legal. I love that.
Right. Assuming that that's legal in the first place, right? You're putting yourself in incredible danger. It's sort of an at your own risk situation. And it's like, sure, if someone comes and, mugs you or assaults you because you're naked in the park at night, on the one hand,
it was illegal. The police should have protected you because they weren't there. The police should follow up and all that. But at the same time, you could have trivially protected yourself.
You could have, indeed.
So I just feel as though when it comes to technology, the level of due diligence that is expected of people needs to be a little bit higher.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it needs to be at the level of a technology professional, but protect yourself a little bit. Know at least something. If you set up a wireless access point and you're 70 years old and you don't even know what it does or how it works, that's no different than if I get in a car, but I've never driven a car before, and I just start hitting pedals and turning things on the freeway.
Yeah. And I mean, a lot of people, the other problem, right, is that there's a lot of people out there in the world, right, who know enough about technology to be dangerous, right? So like an old person has no idea what to do with the wireless access point. They don't even know it works. They don't even know it exists. They get their smart, grandkid to set it up. The grandkid knows enough to follow the instructions and set it up, but they don't know about WEP or WPA or MAC filtering or routing or NAT or anything. They know just enough to be dangerous, but they don't know really enough to get the job done right fully from beginning to end. And that is why we have a lot of things like unprotected Windows boxes and, people, they know how to install software and configure their computers, but they don't know enough to watch out for malware, how to tell the difference between malware and perfectly okay ware. And that's really the dangerous situation that we're in now. And I don't have a lot of confidence unless we start, adding a 5th subject to all public schools in computer technology that anyone is ever, and we have, people being like me being paid enough to teach that class in every school in the country.
The analogy I would use is one I've been using for a long time, and I think it's still perfectly relevant. The internet and technology today is a lot like the Wild West was.
Everyone says the Wild West.
Yes, but think about it on a more literal, take the metaphor really seriously. So there are laws.
There are sheriffs.
There are laws and sheriffs out there.
But sometimes the sheriffs are killed in cold blood.
But not only that, all right, like the movie 3:10 to Yuma or any of those, Western movies. So there are laws, and the laws apply just like the laws out in the East where there are police everywhere. But at the same time, there's not a lot of people to enforce those laws. There's not a lot of people to help you out if someone else breaks those laws. And if you don't carry a gun, at the wall, it's a shame if you get killed and your stuff gets stolen. And the sheriff will say, oh, that's a shame. I wish I could have helped him. I should have helped him, but I couldn't have. I wanted to help him. But at the same time, you can't rely on the sheriff because there's only one sheriff and he's busy.
And the deputies are corrupt.
You've got to carry a gun. If you're on the internet, you've got to have at least a little bit of internet gun.
Well, I think that's the thing is that unlike the Wild West, the internet's major fault is that in the Wild West, if you were out there, you knew it was dangerous. The whole situation was dangerous. The danger was apparent. It was everywhere. You knew that, you had cattle. You knew that they were going to be, you always thought that they were going to be rustled any minute now. The internet looks perfectly safe. It is totally unassuming. It is totally, there's no... you could be having your cattle rustled right now. You wouldn't even know you had cattle to rustle. You wouldn't even know after they were rustled. Your computer's sending out spam. You still don't even know. It's everything is invisible to the average person. They don't realize the danger.
They see a happy purple gorilla who says funny things and does a dance. I see banditos.
Exactly. So we really, I think, on the one hand, if we start getting people to think the internet is dangerous, as they should, right? They will start to fear it, much like people fear guns today, even though I guess guns should be, but instead what we need to do is not fear the guns, but instead have a proper level of respect for them.
Well, I think the term would be a healthy fear.
Yes.
As in, because I fired some guns, but I never...
It seems like the
if you
United
have a gun,
States in general...
You shouldn't be afraid of the gun, like, oh my God, a gun! But if you hold a gun, you should have that fear of, I hope I don't shoot anything unintentionally.
Well, I will not shoot anything unintentionally. I will not point this. You have to be very aware and, be very conscious of what it is and very serious. And you have to, have the respect for what's going on here. You can't just be, taking it all willy-nilly like, yeah, whatever, it's a gun. You got to be like, all right. I'm not afraid of these guns. Like, oh my God, everyone's going to die. It's a gun. It's the end of the world. But you have to, take it seriously and respect the situation. And I think that a lot of people in the U.S. now are I think really our society as a whole has lost healthy fear. It's either sensationalistness, awesomeness, or sensationalist fear. Everything is either crazy love or crazy, oh my God, run away. And we've really lost, a lot of the ability to respect things on a serious level and be, realistically cautious.
This has been Geeknights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music.
Be sure to visit our website at www.frontrowcrew.com, where you'll find show notes, links, our awesome forum, a link to our Frapper map, and links to all the RSS feeds.
We say feeds plural because Geeknights airs 4 nights a week, covering 4 different brands of geekery. Mondays are science and technology. Tuesdays, we have video games, board games, and RPGs. Wednesdays are anime, manga, comic nights. And Thursdays are the catch-alls for various rants and tomfoolery.
You can send us feedback by email to geeknights@frontrowcrew.com. Or you can send audio feedback via audio. Just click the link that says Send Me an Audio on the right side of our website.
If you like what you hear, you can catch the last 100 episodes in iTunes or in your favorite podcatcher. For the complete archives, visit the website, which has everything.
Geeknights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike 2.5 license. This means you can do whatever you want with it as long as you give us credit, don't make money, and share it in kind. Geeknights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.